The screech of tires, shattering glass, and crumpling metal at a busy intersection led to a $50,000 insurance claim. But in Judy Sheindlin's courtroom, something wasn't adding up. As she examined the evidence of this devastating crash, a web of lies began to unravel. Through security footage, phone records, and suspicious medical claims, Sheindlin exposed how a single mother and a career scammer orchestrated an elaborate insurance fraud that would cost them everything. Emily Martinez pulled up to the courthouse in a neck brace, moving slowly with the help of a cane. The 34-year-old single mother of two had filed a $50,000 insurance claim following what she described as a devastating T-bone collision that left her with severe injuries and unable to work. Her soft brown eyes and gentle demeanor painted the picture of an innocent victim whose life had been turned upside down by a tragic accident. The incident occurred on a busy Tuesday morning at the intersection of Oak and Main Street. According to Emily's testimony, she was driving her 2018 Honda Civic to drop her children off at school when a black SUV ran a red light, smashing into the driver's side of her vehicle. The impact was so severe that both vehicles spun out of control, coming to rest on opposite sides of the intersection. The police report noted significant damage to both vehicles, and Emily was rushed to Memorial Hospital with complaints of neck pain, back injuries, and possible internal trauma. In the following weeks, Emily's medical bills mounted as she visited specialists, underwent physical therapy, and received various treatments for her claimed injuries. Her insurance claim detailed $22,000 in medical expenses, $18,000 in lost wages from her job as a dental assistant, and $10,000 for pain and suffering. The documentation seemed thorough: X-rays, MRI results, doctor's notes, and statements from her employer all supported her story. James Cooper, the driver of the black SUV, appeared equally distressed by the incident. The 42-year-old real estate agent claimed full responsibility for the accident, explaining that he had been distracted by an important client call. His insurance company initially processed the claim without question, given the seemingly clear-cut nature of the case and Cooper's immediate admission of fault. However, as the case landed in Judy Sheindlin's courtroom, small inconsistencies began to surface. The initial police report contained subtle discrepancies about the timing of the accident. The responding officer noted the incident occurred at 8:45 a.m., yet Emily's children's school attendance records showed they had been marked present at 8:30 a.m., 15 minutes before the supposed crash. This detail might have gone unnoticed if not for Sheindlin's meticulous review of the evidence. The medical records also raised questions. While they documented Emily's visits to various healthcare providers, the nature and progression of her injuries didn't follow typical patterns. The initial emergency room report described moderate soft tissue damage, but subsequent specialist visits painted an increasingly severe picture. Each new medical assessment seemed to discover additional injuries, culminating in claims of chronic pain and potential permanent disability. What made the case particularly intriguing was James Cooper's background. A search of county records revealed he had been involved in 3 other traffic accidents in the past 5 years, each resulting in significant insurance payouts. While this history alone wasn't damning evidence, it caught Sheindlin's attention. Even more curious was that all 3 accidents had occurred under similar circumstances: busy intersections, clear fault admission, and substantial injury claims by the other parties involved. As the courtroom prepared for the day's proceedings, the air was thick with tension. Emily Martinez sat quietly, adjusting her neck brace and occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. James Cooper maintained a professional demeanor, his expensive suit and carefully styled hair projecting an image of respectability. But beneath the surface, something wasn't right, and Judy Sheindlin was determined to uncover the truth behind this seemingly straightforward car accident case. The wheels of justice began turning when insurance investigator Rachel Alves noticed an unusual pattern in Emily Martinez's medical visits. While typical accident victims showed a predictable recovery trajectory, Emily's medical records revealed a peculiar zigzag of improvement and deterioration. One week, she reported significant progress to her physical therapist. The next, she claimed debilitating setbacks to a different doctor. Each setback conveniently coincided with scheduled independent medical examinations by the insurance company. Alves's suspicions deepened as she reviewed Emily's prescription history. The single mother had filled pain medication prescriptions at 5 different pharmacies across town, each written by different doctors who appeared unaware of the others. This pattern of pharmacy shopping raised red flags, prompting Alves to dig deeper into Emily's past medical history. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Alves interviewed witnesses from the accident scene. Maria Gonzalez, owner of a coffee shop at the intersection, remembered the crash differently from the official report. She described seeing the black SUV already positioned at the intersection before Emily's Honda arrived, contradicting both parties' statements about a high-speed collision. More surprisingly, she recalled seeing both drivers exit their vehicles and walk around normally, with no apparent injuries or distress. Security footage from the coffee shop initially proved disappointing. The camera angle didn't capture the actual collision. However, it revealed something equally damning. 20 minutes before the accident, it showed James Cooper's SUV circling the block 3 times, as if waiting for something. The timestamp matched perfectly with cell phone records later obtained through subpoena, showing a series of text messages between 2 numbers. The first number belonged to James Cooper. The second number, registered to of Sandra Martinez, initially seemed unrelated until Alves cross-referenced it with Emily's employment records. Sandra Martinez was Emily's sister, and she had worked at the same real estate office as James Cooper 2 years earlier. This connection shattered the illusion that Cooper and Emily were strangers who met through a random accident. Further investigation into Cooper's previous accidents revealed a sophisticated pattern. Each incident involved different victims but shared remarkable similarities. Busy intersections with limited camera coverage, clear admission of fault, and injury claims that escalated over time. In 2 cases, the victims had indirect connections to Cooper through various business dealings or social circles, though these connections were carefully obscured. The most damaging evidence emerged from Emily's social media accounts. While her court appearances showed a woman barely able to walk, her private Instagram account told a different story. Posts timestamped during her supposed period of disability showed her at a beach volleyball tournament, hiking with friends, and even participating in a local 5K run. She had attempted to hide these activities by using a pseudonym, but her distinctive tattoo and facial features made identification unmistakable. Alves's investigation also uncovered financial records showing unusual patterns. 2 weeks before the accident, both Emily and James had opened new bank accounts at the same credit union. Small cash deposits, just under reporting thresholds, began flowing into these accounts shortly after the insurance claim was filed. The transaction suggested a level of premeditation that transformed this from a simple insurance exaggeration into a carefully orchestrated fraud. Medical experts brought in to review Emily's claimed injuries found significant inconsistencies. Dr. Michael, a specialist in accident-related trauma, noted that the pattern of injuries described in her medical records didn't match the physics of the alleged crash. The T-bone collision should have caused specific types of trauma, yet Emily's reported injuries seemed carefully chosen to be difficult to disprove while maximizing potential insurance payout. As the investigation neared completion, Alves received an anonymous tip that would blow the case wide open. A former employee at Cooper's real estate office claimed this wasn't his first insurance scheme. The tipster provided dates, names, and specific details about how Cooper had previously recruited individuals in financial distress to participate in staged accidents. This information corroborated patterns Alves had already identified and provided crucial context for understanding the sophisticated nature of the scam. The mounting evidence painted a clear picture of a carefully planned insurance fraud scheme. What began as a routine investigation had uncovered a web of deception involving multiple participants, careful preparation, and sophisticated attempts to cover their tracks. As Alves prepared to present her findings in Judy Sheindlin's courtroom, she knew this case would expose not just a single fraudulent claim, but a pattern of behavior that had potentially cheated insurance companies out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The tension in Judy Sheindlin's courtroom was palpable as Emily Martinez hobbled to the witness stand, her neck brace gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Her performance was nearly perfect. The slight wince as she sat down, the careful way she adjusted her position, the tremor in her voice as she recounted the accident that had supposedly shattered her life. Sheindlin observed Emily's testimony with razor-sharp focus, noting every gesture and inflection. Emily described the morning of the accident in vivid detail. The sound of screeching tires, the terrifying moment of impact, the overwhelming pain that followed. Her voice cracked as she spoke about her children's trauma at seeing their mother injured, and how her injuries had prevented her from being the parent they deserved. The first crack in Emily's facade appeared during cross-examination. When questioned about her previous medical history, she claimed she had never suffered any prior injuries. Insurance investigator Rachel Alves approached the bench with medical records from 3 years earlier, showing Emily had filed a workers' compensation claim for similar symptoms. Emily's explanation grew flustered, her carefully rehearsed story beginning to unravel. The courtroom atmosphere shifted dramatically when Alves presented the security footage from the coffee shop. Frame by frame, it showed Cooper's SUV circling the intersection repeatedly before the accident. Emily's composure cracked further as Alves revealed phone records showing dozens of calls and texts between her sister and Cooper in the weeks leading up to the crash. Sheindlin's questioning grew more intense. Ms. Martinez, you testified earlier that you had never met Mr. Cooper before the accident. How do you explain these photographs? The images showed Emily and Cooper at the same real estate office Christmas party 2 years earlier, their presence undeniable despite being in the background of a group shot. Emily's hands began to shake as she fumbled for an explanation. The medical expert testimony dealt another devastating blow to Emily's case. Dr. Michael methodically explained how the injuries Emily claimed were inconsistent with the type of collision described. Using accident reconstruction models, he demonstrated that a T-bone collision at the reported speed would have caused different trauma patterns entirely. The doctor's clear, authoritative explanation left no room for doubt. Emily's medical claims were fabricated. The most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. Alves had discovered Emily's private Instagram account, and the posts told a story that contradicted everything she had claimed in court. The timestamps were damning. On days she had reported being bedridden with pain, social media showed her actively participating in sports and social events. Each photo was displayed on the courtroom screen, creating a timeline of deception that was impossible to deny. Cooper's facade of professional respectability crumbled under Sheindlin's relentless questioning. His careful answers about his previous accidents grew increasingly contradictory as she pressed for specific details. When confronted with bank records showing suspicious deposits, his explanations became more convoluted, each answer digging him deeper into a hole of inconsistencies. The breakthrough came when Alves presented evidence from Cooper's former real estate colleague, Mark Wilson. Wilson testified about overhearing conversations between Cooper and Emily's sister, Sandra, planning what they called the perfect accident. His testimony revealed how Cooper had orchestrated similar schemes before, targeting busy intersections and recruiting people in financial distress to participate. Sheindlin's voice cut through the courtroom like steel. Mr. Cooper, you've orchestrated not just this fraud, but multiple similar schemes, haven't you? Cooper's attempt to maintain his innocent expression faltered under her piercing gaze. His lawyer's objections fell flat as Alves presented documentation of Cooper's connection to 3 other suspicious accident claims. Emily's composure finally shattered when Sheindlin confronted her with videos from the 5K run she had participated in during her supposed disability. The footage showed her running, laughing, and celebrating at the finish line, all while claiming she could barely walk. Tears streamed down her face as her elaborate deception crumbled around her. The courtroom fell silent as Sandra Martinez, Emily's sister, was called to testify. Initially maintaining her ignorance of any scheme, Sandra's story began to crack under the weight of evidence. Text messages, phone records, and bank transfers painted a clear picture of her role as the connection between Cooper and Emily. When Sheindlin pressed her about similar patterns in other accidents Cooper had been involved in, Sandra's resistance finally broke. The culmination of the confrontation came when Alves revealed the anonymous tip that had helped break the case. A former participant in one of Cooper's previous schemes had come forward, providing detailed information about how Cooper recruited and coached people to participate in staged accidents. This testimony connected all the pieces, revealing a sophisticated fraud operation that had been operating for years. Throughout the proceedings, Sheindlin's expertise in identifying deception became increasingly apparent. She noticed the subtle inconsistencies in body language, the carefully worded answers that avoided direct lies while obscuring the truth, and the moments when rehearsed stories began to fall apart under scrutiny. Her questions were precise and strategically timed, each one designed to expose another layer of the complex fraud. The carefully constructed facade of Emily Martinez and James Cooper's insurance scam crumbled completely as the full truth emerged in Judy Sheindlin's courtroom. Insurance investigator Rachel Alves' methodical presentation revealed a fraud scheme far more extensive than initially suspected, stretching back years and involving multiple participants across several states. Bank records painted a damning financial picture. Alves traced a complex web of transactions showing how Cooper had perfected his scheme over time. He targeted individuals struggling with debt, offering them a chance to solve their financial problems through staged accidents. The money trail revealed that Cooper typically kept 60% of each insurance payout, while his co-conspirators received the remaining 40%, minus any actual medical expenses they incurred maintaining their cover stories. Emily's involvement began 6 months before the staged accident, when her sister Sandra introduced her to Cooper at a time of financial crisis. Emily's mortgage was 3 months behind, and her children's private school had threatened to withdraw their enrollment due to unpaid tuition. Cooper approached her with what he called a guaranteed solution to her problems, presenting the insurance scheme as a victimless crime that would only cost big insurance companies money. The preparation for their staged accident was meticulous. Cooper had selected the intersection of Oak and Main Street specifically because of its limited camera coverage and high traffic volume during school hours. He had even timed the traffic lights to determine the optimal moment for staging the collision. Emily spent weeks practicing her story and learning how to present symptoms that would be difficult for doctors to disprove. Medical records from multiple healthcare providers revealed how Emily had built her false injury claims. She visited different doctors, carefully spacing appointments and varying her complaints to avoid raising suspicion. The neck brace and cane were props in an elaborate performance, worn only for medical appointments and court appearances. Her participation in athletic events, captured on social media, showed her true physical condition. The investigation uncovered 7 other similar schemes orchestrated by Cooper over the past 5 years. Each followed the same pattern: a carefully selected intersection, a recruited participant in financial distress, and a perfectly timed accident resulting in substantial insurance claims. Cooper had refined his methods with each successful fraud, becoming more sophisticated in hiding the connections between participants and creating plausible documentation. Sandra Martinez's role as recruiter became clear through recovered email communications and bank transfers. She had worked at Cooper's real estate office specifically to identify potential participants, employees or clients facing financial difficulties who might be desperate enough to participate in insurance fraud. Her commission for each successful recruitment was 10% of the final insurance payout. The testimony of Dr. Amanda Foster, a pain management specialist who had examined Emily, proved crucial in exposing the medical fraud aspects. Dr. Foster explained how Emily had attempted to manipulate her medical evaluations by describing symptoms that would justify ongoing pain medication prescriptions while being nearly impossible to verify through objective testing. The doctor's detailed notes about inconsistencies in Emily's reported symptoms and observed behaviors helped establish the fraudulent nature of her medical claims. A former participant in one of Cooper's earlier schemes, Michael Reynolds, provided devastating testimony about the operation's inner workings. Reynolds described how Cooper maintained a network of cooperative healthcare providers who were either complicit in the fraud or easily manipulated into supporting false injury claims. He detailed the coaching sessions where participants learned how to describe their symptoms, move convincingly while wearing medical devices, and maintain their stories under questioning. The financial impact of Cooper's schemes extended beyond insurance companies. Alves's investigation revealed how legitimate accident victims faced increased scrutiny and delayed payments because of fraudulent claims like these. Small business owners near the targeted intersections suffered from increased insurance premiums due to the high number of reported accidents in their area. Personal text messages between Emily and Sandra, recovered from their phones, revealed the emotional toll of maintaining their deception. Emily expressed guilt about lying, particularly about involving her children in the scheme by making them believe their mother was seriously injured. Sandra's responses showed how she rationalized their actions by focusing on the financial benefits while dismissing the broader consequences of their fraud. The most shocking revelation came from Cooper's encrypted computer files, which contained detailed profiles of potential future targets for his scheme. These documents showed that Cooper had been preparing to expand his operation, creating a franchise-like system where he would teach others how to orchestrate similar insurance frauds in exchange for a percentage of their profits. This evidence transformed the case from a single instance of insurance fraud into an exposed criminal enterprise poised for expansion. Judy Sheindlin's voice resonated through the hushed courtroom as she delivered her final assessment of the case. She spoke with controlled anger about how insurance fraud affects everyone, from increased premiums for honest policyholders to the erosion of trust in legitimate injury claims. Her words carried extra weight as she addressed each participant in the scheme directly, ensuring they understood the gravity of their actions. For Emily Martinez, the consequences were severe and far-reaching. Sheindlin ordered her to repay the full $50,000 fraudulent claim, plus an additional $25,000 in punitive damages. Beyond the financial penalties, Emily faced criminal charges for insurance fraud, with a potential sentence of up to 5 years in prison. The state medical board launched an investigation into the healthcare providers who had supported her fraudulent claims, threatening their licenses and professional reputations. Emily's children, whom she had involved in her deception, faced their own painful reality. Their mother's actions had taught them a devastating lesson about dishonesty, and they would have to watch her face the criminal justice system. The private school they attended offered them counseling support to help process the trauma of discovering their mother's deception and the impending changes in their family life. James Cooper's carefully constructed world collapsed completely. Sheindlin recommended maximum criminal charges for orchestrating multiple insurance fraud schemes. The evidence suggested his involvement in at least 7 other fraudulent claims, with potential damages exceeding $400,000. His real estate license was immediately suspended, and his assets were frozen pending a full investigation into his criminal enterprise. Sandra Martinez didn't escape accountability either. Her role as recruiter made her complicit in multiple fraud cases. The evidence of her systematic targeting of financially vulnerable individuals led to charges of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Her employer fired her immediately upon learning of her involvement, and she faced both civil and criminal penalties for her actions. The ripple effects extended throughout the community. The local insurance industry used the case as a watershed moment to implement new fraud detection protocols. They established a task force specifically designed to identify patterns similar to Cooper's scheme, using artificial intelligence to flag suspicious accident claims and unusual medical treatment patterns. Rachel Alves's thorough investigation became a model for insurance fraud detection. Her methodical approach to uncovering the scheme's layers, from social media surveillance to financial tracking, was incorporated into training programs for other insurance investigators. The case highlighted how modern technology and traditional investigative techniques could work together to expose sophisticated fraud operations. The healthcare providers who had unknowingly participated in the scheme implemented stricter verification procedures for accident-related injuries. They began requiring more detailed documentation and cross-referencing treatment histories with other local medical facilities. This systematic approach to patient verification helped protect both the medical community and legitimate accident victims. Local media coverage of the case served as a powerful deterrent to others who might consider insurance fraud. The story of how Sheindlin systematically exposed the scheme, along with the severe consequences faced by all participants, reminded the public that insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. The coverage emphasized how such schemes drive up insurance costs for everyone and make it harder for legitimate victims to receive fair compensation. In her final remarks, Sheindlin addressed the broader implications of insurance fraud in society. She spoke about how schemes like Cooper's create a culture of suspicion that damages the foundation of trust necessary for the insurance system to function. Her words resonated beyond the courtroom, prompting discussions about personal responsibility and the true cost of dishonesty in our interconnected society. 1 year after the case, the impact continued to resonate. Emily Martinez, now serving her prison sentence, participated in a fraud prevention program, sharing her story as a cautionary tale for others. Her children, living with their aunt, struggled to rebuild their trust in authority figures. Cooper's scheme became a case study in insurance fraud investigations, teaching future investigators how to spot and unravel complex deception networks. The case ultimately served as a powerful reminder that the truth, no matter how carefully hidden, eventually comes to light. Through methodical investigation, technological tools, and unwavering pursuit of justice, Sheindlin and her court had exposed not just a single fraudulent claim, but a complex criminal enterprise that had threatened the integrity of the insurance system itself.